Hello, everybody. I hope you are well. My name is Georgia Byng with a Y, not with an I, and I'm the author of Molly Moon's incredible book of hypnotism, which I'm reading to you. And by the way, if you like this, tell your friends about it so that they can listen to it too. Because after this, well, I'm probably going to read other things, and so really good if there are people out there who like this sort of thing to let them know. So we've got to chapter 28. And for you to look at today is this, which is my fiance's, it's not mine. It's a rather beautiful thing. It's a very old thing. It's 1400 years old, and it was a Peruvian priest's cocoa pod bag. It used to be very bright once, made with all these feathers, but they faded. I expect it was really bright once. Now it's like this. But I thought it suited this chapter because, as you might remember, Molly and Rocky were finding little packets and of rubies in the bank when they had to empty out the safes. So here we go. Chapter 28. At 1:45 precisely, the door of the warehouse creaked open. Nachman, in his sheepskin coat and wearing his anti-hypnotism device, entered. He shut the door behind him. His body shook slightly, made cold by the walk from the subway, and his hand trembled from the nerves that he was feeling. He wasn't 100% sure of Molly. However, he had to make it look to her as if he was in complete control. He took a deep, raspy breath. There she sat on a chair. He couldn't see her too well with his squirrely spectacles on, but it was definitely her. His footsteps sounded squeaky with his earphone contraption on, and his own voice sounded like Mickey Mouse as he spoke. So, the vehicle's full, is it? So, the vehicle's full, is it? Yes, it's got everything from the vaults, every last pearl. Nachman was amazed. This girl was better than he thought. But he didn't let his astonishment show. And the job went according to plan? Completely. They all think they were robbed by a bunch of armed bandits. And your lorry has everything in it, you'll see. Molly studied the fake professor as if he was an insect underneath a magnifying glass. He really was a low-down, dirty louse, and he looked at Molly like a louse might look at a human that it was about to suck the blood from, without compassion. Good, he was saying. You're learning. Next time you can rob a bank on your own, without my help. Now, what about the book? That was part of the deal, too. Molly reached behind her and picked up the silk-wrapped parcel and offered it to Nachman. He grabbed it and roughly pulled the silk off to check it was the real thing. Mine, he said greedily, like a spoilt child. Now he was itching to get away. He climbed hastily inside his lorry. The vehicle shook as the engine started up and exhaust spluttered into the warehouse. I'll call you when I've gone through my checklist, he said hurriedly. Now open the door. How is Petula? Is she all right? Molly asked, standing on tiptoe and speaking to him through the front window. Fine, lied Nachman. She's been eating well. Steaks and bacon and chocolate cookies. Chocolate biscuits? Yeah. And the sooner you open this warehouse, the sooner I'll ring you, and the sooner you'll be seeing her. Molly saw Nachman out and watched as he drove his brown lorry away along West 52nd Street. As soon as Nachman got off the road by the docks, he tore off his squirrely spectacles and the earphones from the voice-scrambling device. The lorry's gears ground noisily as he fumbled with the gear stick. Then, with his heart racing, he drove. Although he knew he would be easily off the island of Manhattan before the robbery was even reported, he felt dreadfully nervous. Beads of sweat were dripping from his forehead into his eyes, making his vision blurred. He cursed every traffic light and swore at anyone who wanted to cross the road. Soon, though, he was driving into the tree-lined industrial estate in Brooklyn to his gnome-filled warehouse, safe from prying eyes. Here Nachman looked forward to catching his breath, steadying his nerves, and inspecting the precious loot that was in the back of his lorry. Having driven safely inside the building and locking the doors behind him, he slumped against the concrete wall. "Boy, oh boy, I need a big drink," he said out loud. He collected his bag with the hypnotism book, the anti-hypnotism kit, and his passport from the driving compartment and unloaded it onto a low table where a large bottle of whiskey and a dirty glass stood. Sitting down in a plastic armchair, surrounded by garden gnomes, he poured himself a drink and took a slug. He drank the whole glassful, and then he poured himself another. He lit a cigarillo and breathed out a cloud of smoke, sat back with his feet up on the table, and then he began to laugh. Inside the lorry, hidden behind a stack of cartons, Rocky heard him laughing. He wondered whether Nachman was alone. From inside her room, Petula could sense that Nachman's mood had changed. She barked. "Oh, shut up, you stupid animal!" Nachman shouted. A loud, shuttery noise resonated through the building as he opened the back of the lorry. Rocky shrank behind his boxes. "Happy Christmas birthday anniversary to me!" Nachman shouted, grabbing 2 sacks and hauling them out. He carried them over to his plastic armchair and carefully tipped one out onto the table. 10 heavy brown envelopes thudded onto the formica top. Nachman smiled greedily, puffing at his cigarillo. From under his chair, he pulled out a light blue file with several sheets of typed paper in it, and sitting down, he began to rip open an envelope. From inside the paper, a cluster of rubies, hard and blood-coloured, peeped up at him. Rocky crept to the edge of the lorry and peered around the edge. There sat the sluggy Nachman, drooling over a packet of gems, and beside him on the table was the Book of Hypnotism and his anti-hypnotism kit. Nachman smiled as he poked at his treasures. Rocky couldn't do the eye trick like Molly. He could only hypnotize people by talking to them. All he had to do was wait and hypnotize Nachman when he finally fell asleep. Nachman smiled again as he counted. He dropped his cigarillo on the floor and stubbed it out with his foot. Then he put on his earphones and his squirrely glasses, and he laughed to himself. "Ha ha ha!" He walked over to the lorry. Rocky scuttled back to his hiding place. Casually, Nachman pressed a button and elevated himself up on the lorry's electric lift. Rocky shivered from nerves. Nachman unhooked a rope from the inside of the lorry. He heaved the boxes from in front of Rocky and he seized him by the wrists. "Nice try," he said menacingly, pulling him roughly off the lorry. "You stupid fool! I saw your reflection in the side of my whiskey glass." Nachman was flabby, but still he was much stronger than Rocky. So, struggle as Rocky did, he was incapable of resisting as Nachman tied his wrist behind his back and gagged him. Nachman dragged him across the warehouse floor and roughly cast him into the back room with Petula. Rocky fell backwards onto the hard floor. "Make yourself comfortable, titch," Nachman spat, shutting the door and locking it. Petula jumped onto Rocky's lap and licked his face. Nachman approached the lorry suspiciously. If there were any more rats on board, he'd catch them. And then he heard a faint noise above his head. Somebody was climbing in through the roof. Through the roof. Who can that be? So, there you go. Chapter 28. I'm glad to have read that to you before the sun's gone down, because it's getting dark nearly here. Wherever you are, have a really good rest of your day, whether it's the night part of the day or the day part of the day, and I will see you soon for chapter 29. Happy hypnotizing. Bye.